Hello and welcome to a special BriefingsDirect podcast coming to you from the Kony World 2015 conference in Orlando. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Inter Arbor Solutions, your host throughout this series of penetrating discussions on the latest in enterprise mobility. We're here to explore advancements in mobile applications design and deployment technologies across the full spectrum of edge devices and operating environments. Our next innovation interview focuses on how a large U.S. insurance carrier based in the Midwest has improved its application's lifecycle to make mobility a business strength. To learn how, please join me now in welcoming our guest. We're here with Scott Jesse, a Vice President of IT for an Illinois health insurance provider. Welcome to BriefingsDirect, Scott.
Thanks, Dana. Appreciate it.
Scott, why don't you help us understand first and foremost where your organization is in regards to mobility? Are you taking requests from individual parts of your company that want a one-off app? Are you progressing towards a life cycle or strategic approach to mobility? Where do you stand?
Right now, I think it's important to think a little bit about where we came from. Where we started off in mobile was not an imperative. It was not something where we had to get in. It was a nice to have that was on the forefront, but there wasn't enough ROI in people's mind. That shifted quickly in our business model when, from a sales perspective, it became an absolute requirement that you needed to have mobile in order for us to complete our sales. So fast forward to where we are now, we've been running with this for a little bit at this point in time, and we're primarily focusing on the consumer market, which is also exciting for us because we are in healthcare, and with the Affordable Care Act and a lot of shifts in distribution channels, there's been a stronger need for us to have to focus on the consumer. So from a mobile perspective, most of our feedback and requests are driven in that fashion. So what can we do to engage through mobility? What can we do to give them more value as a product through mobility? And how can we give it to them in a fast manner? So all those dimensions are hitting us pretty heavy right now in terms of our current state and what we're trying to think ahead for.
Now, it would be really nice if you could design one application and have that suit your needs for a business-to-employee activity and also your business-to-consumer activity. Is that the case, application by application, or can you create a means by which at least there's a significant platform or reuse benefit to how you produce your mobile applications?
So for us, one of the biggest things in that point of view is getting a mobile application at the consumer level where we primarily focus on and deliver it multi-channel. And that is huge for us because the market's demanding you to have multiple devices, and there's more and more devices each and every year. You got Samsung through the Android side, you got your iOS Apple on your Apple side, and then you got the tablets and smartphones and soon to be wearable devices. There's a plethora of different demands that are people want to consume the information, transaction that you get them in order to have the experience that they want. From our perspective, we try to be as savvy as we can with that, and we leverage the Kony platform to help us achieve that. And we wouldn't be able to have as lean of a staff as we do to help support and drive that forward. And it's primarily because of the fact we can do some level of develop once and deliver through these different devices over that period of time. So it's been big gains for us.
And for the rationale behind your mobile drive, obviously your customers are benefiting from it, but how does the business benefit? Is this also a way through which you can rationalize business processes better? Are you gathering data better or organizing back-end data and services and presenting them better? What's the business benefits that mobile is bringing you other than perhaps just convenience?
Sure. Well, the first thing I'd say we get good feedback on from our business folks are a little different than web is that we're able to deliver a little faster than we can in the web space. So they're more satisfied in our delivery time and cycle time. When they come to us with new pieces that they want, we could typically do it in 6 to 8 weeks compared to a 3 to 4 month cycle on the website, and that's just the nature of what we're doing. So they smile with us a little more so in the mobile space, which is good. The other thing is in a pretty short amount of time, you hit on it with metrics. We have good analytics we could provide in terms of page throughs that they see. If they're trying to deliver new content or something to that effect, we could show them, hey, this worked, this didn't work. And then in addition, as different states that we have promoting our mobile application are going on campaigns to showcase it to potential brokers or different constituencies, they could see if their campaigns are working based on downloads, registration, logins, those types of things. So those are the two key things I think that they like about what we're able to deliver with them as it relates to those two concepts.
Now, you mentioned that sales was an early and important part of the mobile app drive. Has it progressed beyond that? Are there other aspects of the business, whether it is closing out on insurance policies, payments, payer-provider relations and organization and management, all the above? Where have you now extended your mobile drive from sort of that originating beachhead of sales?
So the other use cases, you mentioned providers and other use cases like that, they haven't surfaced too much for us currently, and I think a lot of it goes back to the Affordable Care Act and the fact that we haven't looked at consumers for such a long time. You date back healthcare for the longest period, and it hasn't always been about the consumer because that's not how we made our money or progressed forward through the revenue stream. And now that's becoming a huge piece for us, so we're kind of backstepping a little bit, which is why we're investing so much time. And the consumer use case is such a big, important example because we want to try to not just get hit parity, we want to also extend and differentiate beyond that. So we're playing a little bit of catch up in that regard. But the other piece that we see does tie back to the sales piece as well, which is if we could show differentiation through the sales channel, we could say, hey, brokers, this is what we're doing to help improve wellness, improve access to care. And it ends up hitting these other use case examples you kind of talk about indirectly, not necessarily directly, but ultimately, that's the hopeful outcome that we get out of it.
Now, we're here at Kony World, and one of the things we're hearing about is the importance of the user experience. Now that you're dealing with the Affordable Care Act, you're in more of a marketplace. The way in which your application comes across to a prospective insurance client compares to the other insurance organizations that they might be perusing. So how does the user experience factor into your development and deployment strategy, and how is Kony perhaps helping you with that?
Well, I'd say the big thing this week here at Kony World that was exciting to us is seeing the further enhancements of their Visualizer 2.0 product. Because from our perspective and our marketing communication leaders will scream about this, user experience is king. And I mentioned a few years back where the imperative was to have a mobile app. Great, we checked that off the list. The new imperative is consumer experience. You need to have something that people could use easily, efficiently, and meet the demands that they're looking for as it relates to the functions they need to accomplish. And then beyond that, what's your other value opportunities? And I think Kony does a great job of setting us up for success in that regard. In addition to the productivity gains we get out of this, they have good tools that will help us provide this customer experience in ways that we could show marketing communications to say, hey, what do you think? Let's tweak it. Let's alter it. We could leverage agency input in a more efficient, streamlined manner for the user interfaces that we create. So all those things are really going to springboard us forward. So we're not spending as much time doing it. But then from the visual consuming perspective, it should be a better experience. And that's what we're hoping to get out of it. And I think, as I mentioned today and yesterday, are really showcasing the future opportunities there too.
Another thing that's been intriguing for me here at Kony World is to see their application marketplace and the new application, Kony Sales. Now, this might not be an exact fit for you and your vertical industry, but it seems to me that they're taking a step towards having a packaged application targeted at a specific industry that takes you maybe 80% of the way you need to be, with a lot of the back-end integration in place, with a lot of the ability to customize, but still governed by the IT department. So as the IT person, you're going to get a control over who can do what, but you're also going to have your end users, your line of business customers getting a say as to what their app can do and can't do. Strikes me that's another important part of user experience, is having more say in an app and being part of the development process.
Yeah, I think that's a big jump, and I talked to Tom a little bit yesterday, and I think he explained it really well, and I think it relates well to business users too. You think of what's going on with Salesforce and how those constituencies and stakeholders that leverage that are used to configuring an application base or micro applications. This is really taking Kony a step forward and meeting that marketplace and even extending beyond that in some instances, I think, with their release of both the marketplace and also the two ready-to-go applications they had as well. So I think that's the opportunity at hand for potential business folks, is they've already been doing some of this today in some of the other venues, and now they have an opportunity to do this with Kony. And then as an IT person, where we could really take advantage of it is reduce our workload with some of the configuration components, so it's a little off our hands, and we could focus more so even in the marketplace, which would allow us to create these micro apps these core functional areas that we could then showcase, drop in, share, et cetera, that really puts us in a good position in terms of facilitating innovation, which obviously is hot in healthcare and all industries, but it helps you further move that ball forward.
What about the issue of security? Because you are in healthcare and governance and compliance, regulatory compliance is so important. How do you see the security with a mobile application developing, and how, again, does that integrated platform, write once, run everywhere, benefit you? It seems to me that security issues can come through the cracks when you've got so many multiple iterations of an app. The more commonality, the more policy that you can apply, perhaps the better the security ends up being.
Yeah. And that's a really hard part, especially in mobile. If you think back 10 years ago in the web space, security was probably where mobile is now. And I think it was in 2013 there were no publicized or known mobile risks that were made. But 2014 I think there were 9 or 10. So that was a big jump from 0 to 9 or 10 of big name companies. What's ahead in 2015? It's even scarier. But that relates to, I think, to what Kony offers, and Tom showed it today in terms of what are they really trying to drive towards, and it was SOS, the first one being security in priority order, which puts me at ease. I think one of the things that we've helped is through some of the security components in Kony, they've been pretty up to date with some of the trends that we pull from our third-party auditors that are looking at our mobile applications, and it showcases things like SSL pinning and including that in your code and helping you facilitate the transactions the right way. So that's a good thing for us. I think an opportunity for Kony is to continue to showcase those specifics to not just the customer base, but the non-customer base, because mobile is going to continue to get exponentially more challenging when it comes to security, because the threats out there are just starting to hit it, and they're just getting fresh into it.
Okay. Looking forward now to what's going to come down the highway. We hear about the Internet of Things. We're seeing more and more in healthcare data being derived from sensors and devices. And we're seeing closer partnership between payers and providers when it comes to data sharing in the healthcare sector. So where does healthcare and mobility go for you over the next 3 to 5 years? There was another interesting tidbit here at the show where they said IDC is projecting by 2017 that 25% of IT budgets will be devoted in some way to mobility. Does that strike you as a low ball, and how important is mobility going to be to your IT budget?
I think from a budgetary perspective, that's probably a fair guess, and I think it's because mobility is also being redefined over time. A few years ago, it was just a smartphone, but now it's people moving around, doing activities, transacting against a multitude of different devices, and I think wearable is a great example of that. What does wearables mean to us? It's an unknown for us, and it's on our radar that we need to identify some potential use cases, but we haven't seen enough of it yet. We know, you got the Fitbits that are out there that are pretty hot, but now you got the watches that are coming out. I know Samsung had theirs last year, Apple's doing theirs this year. What's that going to look like? We're not 100% sure yet. So I think from our perspective, it's making sure we have a flag against it for us to see what we could potentially do, but it's a little abstract for us to actually activate against. But we're not leaving it to rest either.
And the issue about the sensors and the Internet of Things, is you consider that mobility, or is that a separate area, big data perhaps? How do you see the mobile drive for user experience and lifecycle benefits now, and how does that compare to that Internet of Things and sensors and data in healthcare?
I think it's both when you say mobility and big data, because it goes two ways. One, it's the consuming of these different sensors across mobile devices and mobile transactions that take place. The other thing that happens is on the big data front, it's an opportunity to collect data and understand your consumer base, to understand your providers, to make better decisions, to help add value along the chain. But it's two-way information that you got to collect in order to really activate both sides of the house. But they play together. They both have to.
Well, great. I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there. We've been learning about how advancements in mobile applications design and deployment technologies are bringing new productivity benefits across the growing spectrum of edge devices and mobile applications lifecycle. We've also seen how quality, speed, and value are rapidly increasing thanks to the Kony mobility platform. So a big thank you to our guest. We've been joined by Scott Jesse, a Vice President for IT at a large Illinois health insurance provider. Thanks so much, Scott.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it.
And a big thank you to our audience for joining this special podcast series coming to you from the Kony World 2015 conference in Orlando. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Inter Arbor Solutions, your host throughout this series of Kony-sponsored BriefingsDirect IT discussions. Thanks again for listening, and come back next time.